Real-time application means WebSocket. Short polling is very bad. Front-end developer doesn't use webhooks. If you have similar questions in mind, this video is for you. Me and Akshay have covered our experiences from Microsoft, Uber, Flipkart, Paytm, and many other startups basically. So we are going to have a very heavy knowledge depth experience sharing, and what are the things which we are going to ask in interviews, or what are popular question in interviews we are going to cover in depth. So before you move on, please like, share, subscribe, and wait for more upcoming videos.
So in communication techniques, basically we will be talking about various ways how we can fetch data, or maybe basically it's like communication between server and client, or maybe server and server, or client and client, or it can be any kind of an communication. So we will going to see what are the different techniques over here. We are going to share our industry experience with you. Where have we used those techniques, how it can be used when you are building a project, and we will also be talking about some of the major famous questions which are very much popular in interviews, so that you are interview ready when it comes to communication techniques. Okay, so to start with, Chirag is with me, right? So hey Chirag, let us just talk about, right, first of all, what are these communication techniques, right, and why they are very good, right, why we should learn it as a senior front-end engineer.
Yeah, you brought a very interesting thing. Whenever you talk about especially these communication technique, what we are talking about was, we have two systems talking with each other. They wanted to talk in the real world or real time, or they wanted to have a stale data? Example, say suppose we are chatting, and whenever we are chatting on WhatsApp or Facebook, consider example, every time I have to reload. How horrible experience it will be. Like, we are on our teams having to manage multiple channels where we wanted to communicate. Every time we have to refresh. Horrible, right? We don't want. The today's era, today's word is basically almost about the real time communication. Now, when we say real time communication, it seems like a very cool thing, like everything will be real time. Very first thing,
Yes.
most of the people think, okay, real time, apply the WebSocket and we will have the real time communication. But as Akshay mentioned, like when we need it basically, so we have to think about multiple use cases. When you want to have collaboration in two ways, when you just wanted to have trigger one way, something is done, please update me, my job is done and you take care of, right? Such cases has to be taken care of. Like you mentioned, what are the techniques we are going to talk about? First, starting with the short polling, long polling, WebSocket, server send event, webhooks, lot of crazy stuff with that. Why don't you, Akshay, get into those detail with where are these basically used from your experience probably?
Yep. So good one, Chirag. Right? I mean, short polling, long polling, all these are high-level keywords, right? And don't get overwhelmed by listening to all this, because we are going to study all of them in detail in upcoming videos. Don't you worry. But in this video, we are just going to give you a short, crisp detail about why these are used, where these are used. Okay. So let me take an interesting example. Okay. So I was thinking one day, right? So think about an application, right? Something like a chat application, and where you are not getting those messages real time, right? As Chirag said, you might have to reload it, or maybe those messages are not instantaneously, right? Suppose if I sent a message hi to Chirag and it reaches at some later point of time, maybe 10 seconds later, right? And what if meanwhile Chirag has sent me another message, right? I'm not well, and right, and the order of them gets distorted, right? So it will be very bad. What needs to be done is we needs to take care of what communication technique do we use to keep it insane, right? I mean, keep the sanity in that communication. Okay, so there are multiple ways of doing that. Some systems are very real time critical, just like our chat applications. Some systems are not that critical. I'll give you an example of not that critical. You might be thinking, Akshay, right, all the systems need to be real time. But no, not all the systems need to be real time. I'll give you an example. Let's take an example of Uber cabs, right? So suppose if you want to know the location of driver, does it need to be very real time, 100% accurate? Not necessarily, right? It's okay if it updates every 5 seconds, 10 seconds. It's okay to have a delay of 10 seconds. But is it okay to have a delay of 10 seconds in chat application? Not really, right? So we need to maintain that order of chats. But there are some applications where it's okay to be flexible, right? And being flexible and being 100% real time or instant, right, comes with a cost, right? So there are different techniques which has their own pros and cons. Let's discuss all of them. So right, basically, Chirag, right, if we have to talk about, right, any example do you have of your industry experience? Maybe you have worked in an interesting company which is MoEngage. I really like that, right? I love that company. And I believe that they would be definitely be sending some push notifications and all that stuff. So what works behind the scenes when you have to send a push notification?
Definitely. So, as you mentioned, MoEngage does so many interesting things, but I wanted to start with a very simple example before getting into the
Uh-huh.
complex one. The simplest place where I have used this kind of polling mechanism was inside our application. We were having some, like we everyone have the JavaScript file. So JavaScript basically
Mhm.
files have something called min.js. We don't want it to have something version being mentioned in this. How do you ensure
Yes.
that this get invalidated every time there is a new build? Someone have to say that the data which is there on the client, the file is there on the client, has to invalidate.
Yes.
Who's going to do that? Now, most of the time, what we do, these cache invalidations are punched from the CDN and which is there. Someone have to say, no, the client has invalidated. What we used at
Mhm.
that time, because this was a real, very fast update we wanted to do, we added a polling mechanism where we were pulling the version which is there on the server on the client, and if there is a version mismatch, invalidate the cache on the client. So this was some trick and hack basically we started over there. It worked well, but again, it is not, again, it always comes, is it a scalable solution, right? There is there any better option?
Uh,
Other thing which MoEngage is used at very large scale, like example, you get marketing messages, right? You get marketing WhatsApp hooks. Basically you get something coming from Flipkart, coming from these are the some special offer floating. What are happening? Some hooks are being triggered. You get those notification either on the SMS, or you can say the WhatsApp, or multiple platform. Now, some are critical, some are not that critical. Example, if there is related to the transaction, you need those messages, you need those hooks then and there to work on the real time. And some are like, okay, it can wait, it can come eventually because of those marketing. Similarly, like you use if I talk about in Microsoft, so we use collab. Like, what is my product? Basically, it is related to the Power Pages, which is you have two people collaborating on the same website,
something
the admin panel,
something like a Google Doc, right? Something like a Google Doc
something like
where
a Google Doc.
multiple people can write in the same uh, space, right? Basically, they can do
Exactly.
a lot of things, right? Two people are editing the same stuff simultaneously. Yep.
Yeah,
So
Kinda admin
it is
panel of a
interesting, right?
website creator.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Mhm.
So over there we use WebSockets. You have to use the WebSocket internally in order to have that.
Mhm,
Many such
mhm.
thing.
Nice one, Chirag. Right? I mean, I know that a lot of people would be confused that, oh my God, what high level things you're talking about. But I'll tell you in a very basic language, right? What is, see, there are two, three major techniques of communication, right? First technique is polling, right? Polling means, right, that word polling means that you are polling something at a certain frequency, right? What do you mean by poll? Let me explain you in very basic terms. You have a website, right? You have a website. I'll give you an example. Let's take an example of ClickBuzz, right? So you must have ever used, right, ClickBuzz, which has a live commentary of a cricket match, right? Live commentary of a cricket match, and it needs to update its website very fast, right? As soon as a single ball happened in cricket, right? So the websites needs to be updated very real time, right? It should be near real time, not real time, but near real time. Okay, so there is a there is a technique which is used over there is known as web sockets. Okay, so it keeps a socket connection between client and server, and then it just updates it properly, right? Automatically. Okay, and then suppose if it is a chat application, again we can use web sockets over there. But suppose if I take an example of an Uber or Ola or Swiggy delivery, right, where you see the live location of someone, so it can not, like, I mean, we can obviously keep it not real time, and it can take like 10 seconds to update. It's completely fine, right? So in those applications, we basically use polling, right? Polling means on the client, every 10 second a request will be made and it will fetch the driver's location. right? Every 10 seconds or every 20 seconds, every 5 seconds. Sometimes it is even every 1 second, right? So it all depends on what kind of application it is. But I will leave you with a question, right? What do you think? YouTube live chat, you would have seen YouTube live chat, right? What does YouTube live chat uses? Polling or WebSockets or something else, right? It's a very important question. Just go ahead, next time go on to a live stream, go to their network tab and just see in the browser console what they are using, right? I covered this interesting thing in Namaste React also, and all my students were amazed. Oh my god, Akshay, what is happening behind the scenes inside YouTube live? So crazy stuff, right? But let me tell you that these communication techniques are very, very, very important. You cannot miss them, right? If you want to be a senior, not even a senior front-end engineer, even a junior front-end engineer should know what these techniques are. They are widely used in most of the systems that you build.
Yeah, I definitely
Yes,
second
Chirag.
that.
So right, you would agree, right?
Yeah, definitely. I would agree. Like most of the people think about, oh, I am a fresher, probably. I can use normal HTTP if hardly required. Whenever I wanted to get the data, I will write set interval, get the data, right? And even there are options I even don't want to even explore.
Uh-huh.
So for junior developer, it works like you have understanding when these are things so that you can discuss and at least get it out if there are other options available in your ecosystem or company. But for senior people, these are very important because it may not necessarily you have all the infrastructure set up for that. Sometimes you have to take those initiative and get it done because you wanted to do the right justice for the product. So knowing them, understanding how those work is something which is very, very important for senior developers especially.
Yes. And these two, Chirag, right? Long polling, short polling, polling mechanism basically, and webhooks are widely used, right? These are,
Correct.
I think, the most popular ones. But there are more to it, right? There is something known as server side events. There is webhooks, right? And they are also widely used. Server side event means that, okay, the server is notifying the client something happened, right? Something you need to look into, right? And one good example of that is you see the notification, right? As soon as your friend will like your post, you will get a notification. That is kind of like a server side event pushed. Not exactly server side events, because in social media generally there is a WebSocket connection which handles this. But I'll give you a better example. Maybe you can talk about a newsletter, right? Suppose I have 100 subscribers, I have written a blog at any given point of time. So there is a server side event which can broadcast things, right? So
Yeah.
there can be multiple applications of this same technique. But again, right, it depends on what you choose to use. Another one, if I have to discuss, is webhooks, right? We will be covering all of them in detail, don't you worry. But I'm just giving you a brief overview. So webhooks basically are used to, you know, uh, talk, right? It's like two systems are talking. I'll give you an example. Suppose you must have uploaded something on Instagram, right? Suppose you upload a photo on Instagram, and then you tick a checkbox, right? That automatically send it to my Facebook account also. What is there, right? It's something like you pushed a post, and then that post goes to Facebook also. So the mechanism, right, where Instagram is sending a webhook, right? It's a webhook which is being sent to Facebook, right? You can build certain kind of features using these techniques. So
Yeah.
not sure exactly what Instagram and Facebook are doing, but similar kind of features are built using these techniques only. So we are going to study all of them in detail. If I have to talk about my industry experience, so I remember I was in Paytm, and in Paytm I was building a product which is forex, right? So it's like, I'll tell you, right? So forex means foreign currency exchange, right? So you can buy foreign currencies on Paytm, right? If people who are outside India might not know what Paytm is, Paytm is basically a fintech application in India, right? So over there you can have your wallet and you can get some money. So similarly, we had tie up with multiple platforms, and we used to fetch instant currency rates, right? Instant currency rates. So there we used polling, right? Every 10-20 seconds, I can fetch the latest currency exchange rates, right? How much is one INR to dollar and all that stuff, right? So in such applications, we can use polling. We have used it. When it comes to Uber, uh, we were basically a service which used to poll data from upstream, right? Upstream means a team above you, right? Basically, the source, the data source, you just poll from that data source. So I have in my career used polling a lot, and let me tell you that many, like, polling is widely used, right? So you should definitely know it when it comes to learning the communication techniques. Yep.
Yeah.
Chirag, any thoughts about interviews, or maybe if you can leak some interview questions right away, which you would have asked or somebody would have asked you?
One of the famous one is the differences between the long polling
Yes,
webhooks and WebSocket, sort of where to use. Basically, that
obviously.
comes the top of the mind, right?
Top of
The
the mind?
the other thing
Yes, yes.
basically which people don't understand is which one is unidirectional and which one is bidirectional. Understanding that is very, very
Exactly.
important. The
First
other
one.
thing is related to your HTTP. Like, does the WebSocket works on HTTP or it uses some other protocol, right?
Protocol.
Whenever we are talking about long polling and server side event, it seems like, oh, we have a long connection on the server and something is happening from the server to the client. We have to understand exactly how long polling and server side events are different. Now, other things comes, which is a very important thing, which is security. How do you handle security when you have these long connections? Some headers do you want it to use in order to keep this up, right? Many interesting things. I'm not going to reveal all of them. Let people
Uh-huh.
come grill
If,
down into that.
as Chirag mentioned, I'll just double click on the same lines. Knowing the difference between all of them is very, very important. If you are a senior engineer, whenever you are asked in an interview to build any system, you always have to spend like 5-10 minutes to tell or talk about these communication techniques and which one would you use, and you should have good reasons why you are using one uh, technique over the other, right? So that's a very important thing to know, whether you would use long polling or WebSockets, or your application does not need one, right? So
Yeah.
that can also be a possible case. So I think this was good. Any other points, Chirag, which you would like to mention, or we can just wind this up?
One thing I just wanted to highlight from my real experience from the Flipkart. So, as you said, the right justification is important every time when you
Very.
have to leverage this. So, I remember using multiple techniques in the same feature which I was building. That was related to the payment integration basically of the Flipkart itself. So there are multiple things. There something has to be done on the server where you actually send it to the payment gateway. You are waiting for something to be done from the payment gateway. Once the transaction is done, you get a hook back. You get a hook back that you
Uh-huh.
have created on the server. Oh, the payment is successful. Now, who is going to
Yes,
communicate from the client to the server? Who's going to tell your screen user who's seeing the screen, like, oh, boss, you got
exactly.
a payment successful. Now, either you go with thinking about, okay, let me build some WebSocket or server side event kind of thing. You have to think
Mhm,
about
mhm.
how many of these transactions are going around, how my long time I
Exactly.
have to poll. Probably these transactions are hardly 5 minute, 10 minute waiting time. Can I just do a normal short polling kind of thing in order to achieve this thing? So
Yes.
those kind of justification and using the right technique at the right place in your same product or the feature can be also a good safeguard basically, and that is needed in the interviewer when you try to justify why you are using one over the other on the different level. So I think that is more than enough. I think in this video, let people go
And
dive.
while listening to you, Chirag, I also got an example over here, right? Interesting example which I would like to share with all of you, right? Even the platform which you are seeing right now, right? namastedev.com. Over here, we integrated a payment gateway, right? So, how that payment gateway works is, so suppose you initiated a payment, an order is generated on our systems, right? We basically checks your request that, okay, this and this person is requesting for this and this course. We create an order and we send that order details to Razorpay, right? Now Razorpay gives us some keys and IDs, right? And that we ship it onto your browser to make a payment gateway portal, right? Where you can actually do your payment with your cards and whatsoever, right? So, and then when you finish the payment, then it is our responsibility to check whether the payment was successful or not at a particular interval, right? So, these techniques are used in random places, but only when you exactly know what to use when, right?
Yeah.
So, these are interesting things. So many places we are used. And one more thing, right? I was giving an interview, right? And what was that question? Yes, I had to make trading platform, right? Something like Zerodha, right? This question was asked to me in Uber interview only, right? In system design round. Basically, it was a hiring manager round, but somehow it turned out to be a system design kind of a round where he asked me to discuss how would you build something like Zerodha. And over there, he focused much upon communication techniques and what you would use to fetch that real time. Because see, making a application like Zerodha is a very what you'll say time intensive application,
Yeah.
right? It's like it should be very real time because you don't want to miss onto those trades. So it was a good discussion with the interviewer, but I'm just telling that it's widely asked in interview, so prepare it very well if you are giving any interviews, right? So
We have recently launched the Namaste Frontend System Design course, which covers the every aspect of system design, from the fundamental to the advanced, the LLD and HLD. This video was just an introductory video. If you're interested, please go and check out the course description in the description link given below. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friend, and see you in the upcoming awesome video.